When you play the Game of Thrones, you win or you die. Today, you win. I am going to be showing you a book that I like, and it is The World of Ice and Fire, and this will be a treat for fans of Game of Thrones and A Song of Ice and Fire. So I will be showing you some of my favorite features of the book. I love the cover. It's a little bit squishy and really textured right in the middle. And you can see it's a pretty hefty tome. It's actually heavy too. Hefty and heavy. It is based on the worlds created by George R.R. Martin. Like I said, it's a heavy one. But this was really put together by some super fans who George R.R. Martin has admitted are actually sometimes more knowledgeable about the known world of his creation than even he. So we have this great embossed seal of the Targaryen family sigil. And so I invite you to join me to learn a little bit more about the world of Ice and Fire. And I hope you like it. I've personally been a really big fan of A Song of Ice and Fire and Game of Thrones for years now. And I know we're just about we're at the advent of the new season where the show in a lot of places will overtake the books, which is sort of sad in a way, but it's also very exciting, isn't it? So you can see I just marked some of the points where maybe I'll show you. You can see there's just, so I've marked a few pages that I really want to show you with maps and drawings and all kinds of Westerosi goodies. So, and I promise I will try to avoid spoilers as much as possible. So most of this just talks about the history of Westeros, of the history of all of the other continents in the known world, and the dynasties created by the Targaryens, the first men, and so forth. So I will do my best not to spoil anything for you, and I hope you'll join me on this little journey. So let's take a look inside. So let's begin our exploration of Ice and Fire by popping open the book. You'll see a lot of these amazing renderings of some of the most epic places in the Seven Kingdoms and beyond. And I want to try to show some specific places and points of interest to you. Here are shields and sigils from so many of the great families of Westeros. And of course we'll be seeing many dragons. One of my favorite features are these pictures of the great keeps of Westeros. This is of Storm's End. You can see the lightning coming down. Like that. And some very blue-black colors. And then contents, just covering absolutely everything you could want to know. Organized by different dynasties, like the Targaryen kings. Organized by eras, like the fall of the dragons, the glorious reign. And then geographical histories of the seven kingdoms as we know them. So the north, the wall and beyond, the riverlands, the Vale, the Iron Islands, and so forth. Of course, the book is written from the point of view of let's say, a monk or a holy man who is a scribe and trying to keep together the entire history of Westeros up through the War of the Five Kings. Here's a shot I really want to look at. Bring it close for you. This is Balerion, the Black Dread, and his dragon rider, Aegon, the Conqueror. Balerion the Black Dread was one of the largest dragons ever seen, and he helped to secure the Targaryen reign. Balerion is one of the most famous historical dragons. I don't think he looks so dreadful. I think he looks quite sweet. And the book begins with ancient history. You can see giants. Now here I've marked with a little piece of paper, because I really wanted to show you this map of the known world. Now, in the known world, there is Westeros here, reaching all the way to the wall and down through Dorne. There. Essos is here, with Slaver's Bay, and Sotheros here. You will learn in your history that old Valyria burned, and so the world we know today is actually quite limited. Up north we have the lands of always winter, and farther east we have all kinds of mysteries. And throughout you'll see renderings of what the giants may have looked like, and the children of the forest. Some of these pictures, imagine what it may have looked like when the first men came and formed a pact with the children of the forest. But we're going to jump ahead just a little. Just because there's too much to get to. This depicts the fall of old geese. Now, this shows how we imagine old Valyria must have once looked. Now, in old Valyria, dragons were quite common, and you can see them all across the skies. And you can see these pyroclastic streets that are flowing with fire. And we know it was a great civilization. We can see the 14 flames. And all of this fueled the magic of the mighty pyromancers. So fire was fuel for power in those days. However, that was long ago. Today, most people have never even seen a dragon. But here's another idea of what some of them may have looked like. Now, of course, doom eventually came to Valyria. And even the dragons burned. Though so much was lost to history, so much of this period is the stuff of legends. Though all of it led to the reign of the dragons. Here we see a magnificent beast flying across the skies with his wings billowing in the wind. They'll just check. Yes, that was another picture of Aegon riding Balerion the Black Dread. Now here, if we look up, we see Dragonstone. Dragonstone is the ancestral home of the Targaryens, though it had been under Baratheon rule ever since Robert's Rebellion. You can see the stone dragons that some people say will one day wake. They guard the palace like sentinels. There's another picture of Aegon, this time close up and in battle. You'll notice that he has the trademark Targaryen features. He has the violet eyes and icy white blonde hair. Dragons were often used in war times. And dragons were how the Targaryens fortified their rule over Westeros after leaving Valyria. This depicts the destruction of Harrenhal, one of the greatest, largest castles in all of the realm. today Harrenhal is still a sight to behold, but is seen as a moldering ruin. This depicts an important time in Westerosi history. This is when Torrhen Stark knelt, known forevermore as the King Who Knelt. And you can see this served as a treaty between Torrhen Stark and the Targaryens. This shows a meeting between Targaryen and Martell. Both the Starks and the Martells held out longer than others to the submission to Targaryen rule. That is why we find that sometimes the people of Dorne and the people of the North are perhaps more recalcitrant to rule and not as accepting of it. You'll find the same mentality throughout the Iron Islands. Here we see a depiction of the Iron Throne. The Iron Throne is legendarily made up of all of the swords of the enemies who tried to stand against its rule. To this day, you have to climb far up and sit on a rather uncomfortable throne because it is, of course, made out of some of the most formidable weapons once held by some of the most formidable warriors in Westeros. Of course, you may have seen, I'm sorry about that. You may have seen TV shows that depict the Iron Throne as much smaller. However, I can guarantee that the real thing is quite large, and it is sometimes said in our culture, heavy is the head that wears the crown, but I think sore is the person who sits the Iron Throne. Not very comfortable, but certainly scary. Here we see the coronation of Aegon the Conqueror. And this is early King's Landing, if you look closely. Of course, today King's Landing is a bustling port city, but these are just the beginning. You can see the signature red rocks below, and the township sort of springing up. The original fortifications were called Aegon Fort. And from there we venture into the history of the Targaryens and their early rule in Westeros. Some were known as wise, some were known as cruel. Some reigned for long periods of time and enjoyed glory. Others had many, many wives. And some were simply known for their spectacle, loved by the people for throwing great tournaments. it was traditional for Targaryens to wed other Targaryens. It's one of the reasons they preserved their traits that we still all know so well. And of course, because there were so many Targaryens and they were all such a close family, a lot of times there were claims that resulted in civil wars or infighting. Some even resulted in splinters of Targaryens born of bastard blood. Yet all were said to be quite beautiful, like Princess Rhaenyra, who is known as the realm's delight. Sometimes dragons were forced to fight other dragons, Targaryens fighting Targaryens. And of course the women rode the dragons as much as the men did. Here we see Princess Rhaenys up there, and she is riding Meleys. And this is King Aegon II. And he is on Sunfire. You can see Sunfire here. Of course, the largest conflict of Targaryen civil war was called the Dance of Dragons. And here we have a list of the dragons involved in that dance. Those dragons included Sunfire, Vhagar, Dreamfire, Syrax, Caraxes, Miramax, Arax, Tyraxes, Stormcloud, Meleys, Moon Dancer, Tessarian, Morgul, Shrikos, Silverwing, Sea Smoke, Vermithor, Sheep Stealer, Grey Ghost, the Cannibal, and the Dragon Morning. Morning was actually a little baby dragon at the time of the dance and survived it. But many dragons did not. Of course, the result of the Dance of Dragons was not good, and it left a very, very young king who required many regions. You can see him here, Aegon III, and his list of regions. Unfortunately, civil war so rarely is a victory for either side. Here you can see the remains of the dragons are really all that's left for most of us to see, unless you believe rumors about things happening overseas. This is the jaw, just the jawbone of Balerion the Black Dread. And you can see when a girl chooses to look into the mouth of the dragon, she's quite dwarfed by it. You can see all of Balerian's teeth, all shining in the light like that. So the dragons are really a specter over the Seven Kingdoms these days, and many people believe they're gone for good. Wouldn't that be a shame? There were some kings who ruled who were very devout. But the one thing that remained constant was beautiful women. Beautiful men and women, I'm sure. But the Targaryens did have a reputation for being gorgeous. Here was built the great sept of Baelor. Baelor was quite devout. And of course today there's still differences in the gods of the realms. People in the south tend to believe in the seven gods, and people in the north still pray to the old gods. Blackfire was the sword of the Targaryen kings, one of the great swords of the realm. It was quite impressive. And this scene depicts the knighting of Daemon Blackfire and his father King Aegon IV, who legitimized Blackfire. They called Aegon IV Aegon the Unworthy, but he was apparently worthy of many, many mistresses. Now let's skip ahead a little bit to talk about some faces and places you might recognize. Here's a nice picture. This shows Sir Barristan Selmy in combat. Sir Barristan Selmy is one of the greatest knights of the realm. And this depicts King Aerys, the second of his name. At this time, Lord Tywin Lannister, a young buck, became the Hand of the King. This greatly helped secure the Lannister rise to power and their place at court. King Aerys was not known as a magnanimous or forgiving man. Here he is condemning the Darklands. It's a sad tale. And all of his condemnations led to the fall of the dragons. Here is a very important scene, it turns out, in Westerosi history. Rhaegar Targaryen has just won at the tourney, and he is basically giving his favor to Lyanna Stark right here. Now, this was not what was expected of Rhaegar. especially since Lyanna Stark was supposed to be the lady love of a young Robert Baratheon. Lyanna Stark is the sister to Eddard Stark, or Ned Stark, as many of you may know him. Prince Rhaegar, of course, was not meant to be with Lyanna, and Lyanna was promised to someone else. It can be argued about all of the events that led up to Robert's rebellion, but certainly seeing his lady flirted with in front of so many people did not make Robert any happier. Rhaegar Targaryen, who is said to be quite handsome and quite a warrior as well as a musician, can be seen in the upper corner here. Sheathed in red, the color of his house. And here we see King Robert Baratheon, the first of his name, victorious. Of course, Robert's reign was called the Glorious Reign and was meant to restore order and glory to Westeros. Here we see the Red Keep in King's Landing as we see it today. You can see how red and angled it is, as well as a little of the topography of the city. And now we'll explore just a little of the Seven Kingdoms. And there's the paper. So, we can see the north here in detail. The north is nestled between the riverlands and the lands of always winter, with the Bay of Ice and the Sunset Sea here, and the Bight here, separated at the neck. The wall, of course, bisects the land, and just beneath the wall we see the gift. And the King's Road comes right through the middle here. Of course, the Lords of Winter are the Starks, although much turmoil has come to Winterfell as of late. Here you can see Moat Cailin. Quite beautiful, but not so functional. As well as some of the Kings of Winter, their shields, the bannermen of the Starks. Of course, the North also has the mountain tribes, the Crannog men. But the true delight of the North is Winterfell. Again, you may have seen television shows that show Winterfell as being quite quaint. Winterfell is actually very large. And while it looks cold, hydrothermic systems keep it very, very toasty, even in the long, long winters. So even though winter is coming, Winterfell is always prepared. And I think it's quite beautiful. You can see the township nestled below where the small folk live. And the large imposing walls and parapets. This may be a little hard to see, but you can see how the wall carves through the landscape here, with Castle Black right at the middle, just above Molestown. And of course, there are many castles of the Night's Watch, Most of them today are in disuse, however. We hope that in time the Night's Watch will be able to recruit more men so that we can have a strong defense to the north, as some say there are rumblings of trouble up there. However, you can see that the active castles of the Night's Watch now are the Shadow Tower, Castle Black, and Eastwatch by the Sea. Abandoned are Westwatch by the Bridge, Sentinel Stand, Grey Guard, Stone Door, Hoarfrost Hill, Ice Mark, the Night Fort, Deep Lake, Queen's Gate, Oaken Shield, Woodswatch by the up by the pool, Sable Hill, Rhyme Gate, Long Barrow, Torches, and Green Guard. And of course, our Night's Watch is vigilant and always on the lookout for wildlings. Looks like we've skipped to the Riverlands, where House Tully rules. I wonder if I accidentally passed a picture of... Let me just make sure. I want you to really get a sense of the north. Here's a depiction of the wall. It's quite mighty to behold. Here we are. So next we're in the Riverlands. Here's Harrenhal in the middle. Harrenhal, like I said, is mostly ruin, but still quite large. However, the major castle, although not the largest, is run by the Tullys at Riverrun. The Riverlands are lush and verdant, perfect for harvesting lots of food for the realm. And you'll see some of the arms of House Tully and all of their bannermen here. Here you'll see a little bit of Harrenhal, and you can see some of its destruction in the background. It's still a mighty, mighty, mighty castle, much, much bigger than Riverrun. However, as you'll see, it's hard to compete with Riverrun for natural beauty. Riverrun actually is able to flood and unflood their moat for protection when needed, and though siege has been laid to Riverrun a number of times, Riverrun has never completely been taken due to this ingenious defense. It's also quite tranquil. Next is the Vale. The Lords of Arryn run the Vale. But don't rule out the mountain clans that get rather raucous. Some of the mountain clans are listed here: the Stone Crows, the Milk Snakes, Sons of the Mist, the Moon Brothers, the Black Ears, the Sons of the Tree, the Burned Men, the Howlers, the Red Smiths, and the Painted Dogs. The Sigil and Shield of the House of Arryn. And another remarkable site is the Eyrie, the castle of the Arryns. I'll just take that. castle Vale has never been taken. You can see why. It's so far above the land. And in order to bring up supplies, there have to be access elevators that go all the way up and down. You can also see the sky cells. If you've been very bad, you might end up here. They have completely open faces so that you never feel quite safe. And the floors of each cell slant slightly toward the drop-off so that if you were to roll in your sleep, you might not wake up. Still, it's quite striking, isn't it? Here are the gates of the moon. I fear we've skipped the Iron Islands. Let me just take a peek. There we are. The Iron Islands are still rather rebellious, and the people rambunctious. Here is Pike. And you can see all of the other islands. Of course, the Iron Islands are home to the Greyjoys. And they ride around in their iron-born longships, as depicted above. Some consider them to be rather bellicose, but they are part of the Seven Kingdoms nonetheless. Here are some of the bannermen of the Greyjoys, represented by the Kraken sigil. Here are what's left of the remaining towers of Pike Castle. Pike being home to the Greyjoy dynasty, but be careful because the bridge tends to swing a bit in the wind and it can be dangerous. Here are the westerlands. Have a peek at them. And in the Westerlands, you'll find Lannister blood. So, there's the shield of the Lannisters and their bannermen. We know one thing about Lannisters, they are quite rich. Of course, a Lannister always pays his debts is a popular saying, but their official house slogan is "Hear me roar." And here's Casterly Rock. Quite the rock, I would say. And they say it's full of gold below. You can see the mines. And high, high up on the cliff is perched the castle. You also may be able to see the lions right here that are waiting to welcome greeters. Or I'm sorry, waiting to greet travelers. The Reach is a really lovely place to be. It's sort of in between weather. right, you'll find Old Town, where the maesters study. And the High Tower and Battle Isle. Next we come to House Tyrell, growing strong. Now you've seen some beautiful keeps, but Highgarden is often said to have the most beautiful in all of the realm and beyond. It's florid and filled with flowers and said to smell just wonderful all year round. It has rivulets going through it, and you can see the great hedge mazes, as well as the way that the moss has grown over the castle walls and even through the parapets and around the turrets. People say that when approaching Highgarden from afar, it almost looks like just another bit of the landscape because it's so enmeshed with nature itself. Then we come to the Stormlands. And as you might imagine, the Stormlands have quite a stormy history. House Baratheon rules. And you can see their shield here. Here's a really cool picture of Lord Lionel Baratheon and his famous horned helm, which many of the Baratheons wore, and I think is just really, really cool, though I'm sure a bit unwieldy, if not intimidating. At the southernmost point of Westeros, we come to Dorne and the Summer Sea. Dorne is home to the water gardens and deserts, so it's quite warm and a wonderful place to summer. They say there's three kinds of Dornishmen: the stormy, the sandy, and the salty. And that has to do with the variation in geography and climate. Things are a little bit different in the South and always have been. Like I said, they engaged the dragon quite a bit in war before giving in. This depicts the death of Meraxes, one of the great dragons. Sunspear is also quite beautiful. It has more days of sun than any other keep in the realm, and is home to House Martell. You can see that it has some Middle Eastern inspiration and almost looks like a boat going out to sea. Now, the worlds beyond this, what we call the Sunset Kingdom, there are parts of the world that are still dark to us, other lands, and some of them we know very little about. but we do know quite a bit about the free cities, as we still do trade with them quite regularly. Of course, they have their own ways of doing things and their own kinds of festivals, animals, celebrations, and foods. And free cities is a bit of a misnomer, given that they believe in slavery and profit heavily off of it. Each city governs itself as a city-state. Some of them have very complex leadership. Some of them have very simple oligarchies, plutocracies, theocracies. There's something for everyone, really. Here we see the free city of Pentos, looking almost gold from the sea. Some of the cities are truly massive and much more diverse than Westeros proper. Here you can see some of the different slave markings of the people of Atlantis. Of course, slavery is outlawed in the Seven Kingdoms. However, there's quite a bit more war in the Seven Kingdoms and monarchy. Oh, here's a nice sight. One of the wonders of the world, the Titan of Braavos. And he stands high above all who pass through. It's quite scary. Braavos is associated with the Seven Kingdoms still to this day, mostly through the Iron Bank of Braavos shown above. The Iron Bank is a supplier to many great families overseas. And you can see that Braavos is really many small islands brought together, as shown here in a quick view of the Temple District. Beyond the free cities, there's even more curiosity. There's the Summer Isles. There are also places much more mysterious. Let's see if I can find a picture. Many of these lands have been abandoned or haven't been explored, but there are said to be wonderful ruins. Here we see Valyria, which is the home of the Dothraki and the Dothraki Sea. This is the place where they return to trade and do business. However, the Dothraki are largely nomadic people. And they're known as the Horse Lords. Of course, all former Khaleesi's come to Valyria to retire in a way, to become doyens of the community essentially. And they are required to do so once their when their husband, leader of their Khalasar, falls off his horse or dies. There are farther places like Et and Ashai. And creatures called sources that wander. There are places like Lang. But most of these places are largely unknown to us, like Ashai by the Shadow, which is believed to be a place of great magic and great mystery. We know that there are no children in Ashai, but that it is a port. And so if you wish, you can go and trade, but the city is steeped in sorcery, warlocks, wizards, alchemists, all those kinds of things. Red priests. Now, before we close, there are rumors of a young Targaryen and the dragons that she has helped bring back to life. But how can we know if this is true or not? What we do know is the world is changing. We know that the War of the Five Kings has once again disrupted peacetime in Westeros. Here you can see the Targaryen lineage, quite long. But for now, we have Baratheon rulers, young as they may be. Sorry about that. You can also see the Stark lineage, though we also know that perhaps the Starks are in their own kind of peril. The lineage of the Lannisters is available to us as well, though many will propagate rumors that of course you shouldn't listen to. And finally, a timeline of the Targaryen reign and the Baratheon reign. Obviously the Baratheon reign is still quite short. There's a lot to live up to. Here's a striking picture of the twins as we close. And who could that be? Mighty clashes have always taken place among men, and we hope for peace sometime soon. So thank you heartily for joining us, turning the pages of the world of ice and fire.